Today I want to talk about something I've been sprinkling into my runs for the last week or so, and that's hill surges. 11.53 miles, 8 minutes, 21 seconds per mile, 145 beats per minute on average for today. Although that average really doesn't tell the whole story of the workout, because what I've been doing lately, and I did kind of more of today than in other days, is hill surges. The idea behind the hill surges is there's really a couple of reasons. One is that I'm testing my knee, and a couple of weeks ago I made a video about how my knee was starting to bother me, and I thought it might be because some of the shoes that I was wearing have some hints of stability in it, and that might have been kind of exacerbating an existing kind of imbalance in some of my foot strike and gait. So I took a break from some of those shoes, and I'm starting to feel a lot better. The hill surges are a way for me to kind of test it out. Not only am I pushing the distance a little bit, kind of gradually have a longer day and then a shorter day and then another longer day, and kind of see how I feel. But I'm also like putting some extra strain on it by working harder up the hills. But let's take a look at some of these numbers and see kind of what the numbers mean. So today I ended up having 5 different hill surges, which is unusual because before, the past 4 or 5 days or so, as my knee's been getting better, I've been doing like 1 hill surge, maybe 2 hill surges. And at the beginning, like just trying to tap that 300 watt number was quite an effort, even though I was going uphill. And the other nice thing about going uphill is that those power numbers, you can hit much higher power numbers without feeling like you're really redlining quite so much. And so I've tried hitting 300 watts as I was on a flat, and that's a little bit more difficult than when I'm doing it going uphill. But other days I've been doing 1 or 2 surges. Today I did 5, which definitely felt more like a workout. It felt more like a pretty intense fartlek. I was running the on portions much harder than I would normally run an on portion for a fartlek, but you know, the rests were kind of irregular and a lot longer than I normally would schedule if I was doing a fartlek run. So kind of a very loose fartlek is kind of the best way I can describe it. The number, as I mentioned, that I was trying to hit was at least 300 watts, not necessarily for the entire time. And these hill surges last anywhere between like 1.5 minutes to like 2.5, maybe even 3 minutes. So like a quarter mile to maybe a half mile, not really even that long, because I'm not picking the longest hills, but I am picking kind of like the steeper hills that I might encounter on my run. On any given day around here in New Vienna, I might hit between like 250 and 450 feet of elevation gain for an entire run, when I'm talking about like 5 miles, 7 miles, 11 miles. So like, you know, these hills are like 1 or 2% grade, maybe 3%. So over the course of like a quarter mile, I'm gaining maybe like 30 feet. So nothing insane, but definitely enough to feel it, to know that you're running up a hill like mentally, and for the power meter to pick up that you're running on something that's a little bit different than a nice and easy flat. So what the numbers are kind of correlating to all kind of makes sense for me right now, and I thought it'd be kind of a good way to talk again about like how like pace, heart rate, and power can all kind of fit together. So for the power that I was shooting for, I'm shooting for about 300, keeping in mind that however long the hill is, I want to kind of keep the intensity up and hit 300 at least at some point during that like surge. And that's kind of that 300 number, based on my more recent critical power numbers, is kind of like in my mile pace range. And then the heart rates that I'm getting in those surges as well are anywhere between like 170 to even up to like 180 if it's a longer surge. And so that's getting close to kind of my max heart rate, or what I think my max heart rate is. So again, that kind of corresponds to more of what my mile pace is. And then in terms of the speeds, going up these hills, I'm getting anywhere between like just under 6 minutes a mile to about 6:15 per mile or so, which again, I think corresponds to kind of like what my mile pace would be, like grade adjusted. So I think my mile pace right now is somewhere around the 6 minute mark, although I think I'll be doing a mile time trial relatively soon here. So we'll get a kind of a better idea on that. Although I'm not gonna like taper for it or run it, whatever. I'm just gonna like kind of train through and kind of get a number to get kind of a baseline. But I think about 6 minutes per mile is about right. So I think all these things are kind of lining up. One of the things that I noticed when, you know, I've taken a look at some of the data is the difference between like the power curve and the heart rate curve. And that's where, like, for shorter increments like this, where I'm only on for like a minute and a half or so, when I start kind of like turning it on, the power meter picks up the change instantly, and it gives me pretty immediate feedback into how hard I'm working. On the other hand, the heart rate takes about 30 seconds for it to kind of register, okay, you're working harder now. And then also when I'm done, the heart rate takes about a minute to a minute and a half to really kind of like recover. And the more repetitions I do, the longer that recovery kind of takes, which is something really important to know when you're constructing workouts and figuring out what your rest intervals should be, depending on what the purpose of the workout is. But it's also telling me that, you know, if I was using heart rate to figure out like, am I running fast enough for the on? Am I running fast enough for the off? The heart rate isn't necessarily going to give me that instant feedback that I'm kind of looking for when the intervals of on or off can be pretty short and put together. So one of the things that I'll be tracking, I think my knee is getting ready to the point where I'm ready for kind of the next training goal. And what I'll do as I start looking at some of these shorter intervals to train at and using power a little bit more is, how do those numbers kind of line up? How does the power number correspond to my heart rate, and how does that correspond to my pace? Ideally, what I'd like to see and kind of what I anticipate, the heart rate should stay about the same, but the pace should drop and should get faster. So basically, for the same cardiac output, I should be able to go faster. For the same cardiac output, I should be able to put out more power. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for. This run today is going to serve as largely a benchmark. So as I start doing some other kinds of training, even if it's not just 100% hill surges, I can repeat this workout, or maybe not the exact same hills, because I didn't get every single hill. There's probably about 9 or 10 little hills that I would consider, and I picked 5 of them. But it'll give me an idea of kind of where does the power number correlate to the heart rate, correlate to the pace, and I could check on that going forward. So that's kind of just wanted to give you an idea, a snapshot in time of like my current level of fitness. If you have any questions about where I'm at, where I'm going, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. I'd love to keep the conversation going down there. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I'll see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?